with the celebration of life for Dolores together. I would like to apologize, but also in the spirit of Dolores' own issues with tech, my issues with tech as well has left the fact that I inadvertently spelled Jeremy's name incorrect on the program, and I omitted to put doctor in front of Celia Zambon-Wallenberg's name. So I do apologize for that. Dolores would have found that funny because she would have probably did similar things. I do ask that you turn off your phones, please, so that we will not have a sound going off. I've already done that for me because I'm usually the culprit. With that, we are going to be starting with a young man who just recently graduated from the University of Oklahoma, Corbin Hall, singing Purcell's If Music Be the Food of Love. Gathered to honor and celebrate the life of Dr. Dolores Leffingwell, a remarkable teacher, mentor, and friend. A voice teacher and friend whose impact on many of us has been profound. Dolores was a complex individual, someone who, to be honest, could be difficult at times. But that difficulty often came from a place of passion, from a deep commitment to her craft, and from a desire to push each of us beyond what we thought we were capable of. In the world of voice, where so much is felt through emotion, vulnerability, and expression, Dolores had a gift for understanding that teaching voice was not only about technique or perfecting a phrase. It was about teaching each student how to find their own voice. She wasn't one to mince words or offer easy praise. Many of us here today know firsthand that lessons with Dolores were not always easy. She had a way of pushing us hard, demanding more, and yes, there were moments of frustration and moments where it felt like we could not possibly meet her large expectations. And yet, through that intensity, we grew. Dolores believed in the power of music and the transformative nature of voice, and she demanded that we find that power within ourselves, even when it was hard to see. In many ways, Dolores taught us resilience, both on stage and in life. Dolores was not someone who handed out compliments freely, but when she did, it meant something. A rare smile or a nod of approval felt like winning a battle, and for many of us, those moments are etched in our memories. It was through those difficult lessons that we found our strength, our confidence, and our voices, not just in music, but in the world. But let us also remember the times when she surprised us with moments of warmth and humor, the times when we felt a breakthrough in our work, and the sense of accomplishment after mastering a complex passage or a technical skill. These moments remind us that even in difficulty, there was connection, growth, and meaning. Dolores was not only a gifted poet, but she was a deeply compassionate soul, especially when it came to animals. Her love for dogs in particular was boundless, and she did find joy in rescuing those who had been forgotten or abandoned. Just as her words brought beauty and insight to the world, she brought love and comfort to many animals who needed it the most. Through both poetry and rescue, Dolores showed us the power of kindness and the beauty in giving a voice to the voiceless. I'm going to provide a brief list of some of Dolores' professional accomplishments, for they were many. Her education was completed at the Peabody Conservatory of Music of the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland, with a doctorate in musical arts in 1990. This was preceded by a Master's of Music from Syracuse University, Syracuse, New York. She had 2 years of professional opera and voice studies in Munich, Germany. She studied voice at the Juilliard School of Music, and she completed a BA in English Literature and Philosophy at Mount St. Joseph College in Ohio. Dolores sang leading roles under the baton of James Levine, Robert Kolff, and other conductors. Following her work at Juilliard, she was the recipient of the, and I apologize for my German, Schwarzbacher and Koppen grants for 2 years of study. That was one of her issues with me, diction. I never was quite happy. She was never happy with me. Which did lead to a contract with the Vienna Kamera Opera. Her major teachers were Beverly Peck Johnson, Ellen Fall, and Phyllis Bryn Ulson. Among other significant musical mentors was Thomas Grubb, pianist, vocal coach, and author. And how many of us still own our Grubb? I do. During her master's degree at Syracuse University, she became a member of the research team investigating the singing voice led by Martin Rothenberg. She continued this work in Oklahoma as a founding member of the Singers Clinic through the Hollingworth Voice Laboratory directed by Dr. Keith Clark at the Oklahoma University's Health Science Center. With the support of a Peabody grant, Dolores premiered 13 of 21 unpublished lieder of Fanny Mendelssohn Hensel that she had collected while in Germany. She was always a voice of support for women's composers and women artists. She became a member of the faculty of the School of Music at the University of Oklahoma in 1989 and continued on the faculty until her complete retirement in 2019 as Professor Emeritus. Many former students have won competitive places and scholarships to the Summer Opera Program in Graz, Austria, the Juilliard School, Manhattan School of Music, New England Boston Conservatory, Santa Barbara Summer Opera Program with Marilyn Horne, Aspen Summer Music School, the Summer Vocal Program in France with Marilyn Horne, Tanglewood Summer Music School, Central City Opera Apprentice Programs in Colorado, Inspiration Point Fine Arts Colony in Arkansas, the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, the Herbert Groff Opera Institute in Switzerland, the Peabody Conservatory of Music, the Bay Area Summer Opera Institute in San Francisco, the Mannes School of Music in New York City, and she had a Pavarotti Young Singer winner. Several of her reviewers said, petite in size but not in voice, Leffingwell is amply endowed with vocal ability. She has power, range, and color, which she uses intelligent and tastefully, and with great assurance. In every instance, the composer was treated to a manner consonant with his style. She has a genuine feel for the vocal art and that special charm that it takes to draw the essence out of lieder. Arthur Hepner, The Boston Globe. Another review. The musical setting of Agrippina contains some of the most extended and difficult coloratura and demands the greatest fierceness of expression. Miss Leffingwell negotiated the fioritura with both vocal assurance and the kind of projection and involvement that makes the ornament seem dramatically motivated. Ellen Pfeiffer, The Boston Herald American. By John Brenner of Opera Review. Miss Jessel, From the Turn of the Screw by Benjamin Britten, sung by Dolores Leffingwell, made the greatest impression of the evening. Here is a voice of power and ease of projection, a lush, ringing top register, excellent middle placement. Her diction was impeccable. It was with Miss Leffingwell that the opera suddenly began to radiate the theme in full dramatic impact. And finally, from Richard Dreier of the Boston Globe, Dolores Leffingwell has real quality in her voice and real beauty in her singing. In truth, Dolores was not always an easy person to know. Like all of us, she had her complexities, challenges, and imperfections. But that is what makes us human, our struggles, our triumphs, our flaws, and our strengths. For those of us who knew Dolores well, we saw someone who lived with a strong will, who spoke their mind, and who faced life on their own terms. Sometimes that made her difficult, but it also made her someone who was deeply authentic. In a world that often pressures us to fit in or perform, there is something to be said for someone who stays true to themselves. There were also moments of kindness, humor, and love. For all of the complexities, that warmth and laughter was there, even if it wasn't always easy to see. We remember those times today, the times when she let down her guard, when we shared joy, and when we saw the goodness that was often hidden beneath the surface. As we honor Dolores today, let us acknowledge and recognize that complexity, but also remember the wonderful times of connection, the way that she touched our lives, and the good memories she's left behind. Now I will read some memories from families and friends who are out of state and weren't able to make it today. This is from Carlson, her nephew. What I remember most from my aunt is her big smile and her even bigger laugh. Her visits would fill our home with her warmth and her brightness. 30 years later, I still remember the words Dolores said to me shortly before I was married. She said, "The light in your eyes that I used to see in you as a young boy has returned." Such a lovely insight and observation, and my wife and I are still happily married. From his wife, Kathy Giraldo Carlson. There is a quote by an unknown author: "When friends become your family and family become your friends." It is clear to me that Dolores had a beautiful, extensive family of friends in Norman, Oklahoma, and globally. The kindness and genuine moments that she shared with all of you were key to forming those lifelong connections that made her so happy. Thank you to all who have shared memories with Dolores that are filled with love, laughter, and everlasting friendship. I appreciated her kindness toward all creatures, big and small, her prodigious use of the English language, and her ability to form those deep friendships and bonds. She was truly loved and fondly remembered. From a friend in Seattle, Debbie Doan. Dolores had a meaningful life as a music educator who impacted and will be remembered by many. I always enjoyed hearing about her university activities, and I know you will miss her. Her sister, Marianne Carlson, sent me this quote from the Omaha Native Americans. "The clear sky and the green, fruitful earth are good, but peace among men is better." Finally, in a memory from an individual who's not here, Dr. Michael Lee. What can we say to one another at a moment like this? A deep, wild, predictably unpredictable, generous, high-tempered wandered through our lives and just left. And now we get to be thankful for knowing her and joyful in remembering. So today, as we say goodbye, let us hold on to the lessons we've learned from Dolores, not just about music, but about perseverance and finding our own voices. May she now find peace, and may we carry forward the impact she had on each of our lives.
undergrads in the mid-90s, and as I sit over here, I still see Dolores breathing with each breath. She did both in her studio, but also when you were in performance, she was there and you saw her breathing just as you should be breathing too.
Sometimes you can hear it.
Yes, and when I look through her poems at possible choices for today, I hear them all in her voice, and so I hope you are able to take them and hear them in your own self in her voice. This is a short one. It is urgent. Heavy with heat, I abandon the house, press my sneaker-shelled feet into crusted earth, away from the harsh, unyielding pavement, desperate, desperate. A moment ago, my hands, arms, shoulders unwittingly leaned against the side of the yellow brick garage, and I burn, and I am angry for the insult and no longer innocent. It is 11:24 p.m. for God's sake, and there is no escape from the unrelenting roil of this Oklahoma heat. Singer. Why do I feel so short behind this thing? He sings as one caught in the hook of the body, a prisoner of drive, of passion, bound, censorious. He strives for hope, a fixed arch of words for the catharsis of melodies, their elusive leaps, their promenades. In ecstatic rhythms he dances, before great fire he dances, and Apollo's eye he probes, stuns the contours, the crevices of that artful mind. Yet ruthlessly, ruthlessly, the river of relief passes him by. O willful warrior, lute-hearted, carved and curled to conquer, should the mountains eye your progress with indifference, observe your fury with a shrug, step urgently within. Here, in darker, realer realms, gather the skins of your intentions, advance, unclaim the rude, bruised wounds of your desires, songs cupped and crafted in anguish, songs once unbearably entombed on the lips of your resolve.
Good afternoon. Before I start this song, I wanted to translate the poetry. Dolores, being a poet herself, she always emphasized the importance of text. And when I chose this song to honor her today, I really liked the text because it talked about how a poet designs a poem. It goes like this. A poet said that when he was young, he flourished verses the way a rosebud does roses. When I think of her, it seems to me that babbles an imperishable fountain. Just as on the lily, God puts the scent of church. Just as he puts the color of coral on the cheeks of the cherry, I want to put on her, with devotion, the color of a scent that will have no name.
No place to go. Who, where, what is death? A liberation, a disguise, a slanted silence our perceptions fail to identify, an abyss abiding in a place beyond our distraught reach, our floundering thoughts, an evolving energy perhaps, in sync, subtle as the moon is wan, uncolored by the sun, hesitant until coaxed by the tolerance of stars, it descends towards its ponderable infinity. Might death be animate, subject to matter and its whims, like the silver backing of a mirror that inhales each image, impaling the target in its pace, muted destiny? Is it sunrise, sunset, a short-sighted planetary surprise? Whatever. We were unprepared, so disinclined, some might say, savagely at sea, at having no place to go.
I would like to invite Dr. Marvin Lamb, former Dean of the the Weissenhofer College of Fine Arts, and a marvelous composer in his own right, to share some memories of Dolores Leffingwell, and then after that I will open it up to those of you who would like to share. Feel free to come to the podium if you wish, or share from your seat.
Thank you very much, first of all. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Marvin Lamb. I'm a professor emeritus in the School of Music, and from 1998 until 2005, I served as the Dean of the Weissenhofer Family College of Fine Arts. I know that this ceremony is being beamed electronically to those that cannot be here, and those are members of her family. So I'd like to begin my remarks by simply offering my heartfelt condolences to her family on the loss of their sister. Now, some of you that can see me might be wondering why in the world I wear a bow tie to a ceremony such as this. And it has to do with my relationship with Dolores. Dolores was very fond of bow ties, and I wore them a lot when I was a dean. And she would always stop me and remark that she really liked the fact that I was wearing bow ties, and I really looked good in a bow tie, and it made her happy to see me in a bow tie. And we had a rule in the dean's office while I was the dean of the College of Fine Arts, and it was a simple one: make Dolores happy every day. So if a bow tie will do that, I'm all for bow ties. My first interaction with Dolores goes back to 1997. I was being interviewed here for this position that I would take in 1998. And there was a very large and somewhat ungainly search committee, and Dolores was a member of that committee, and a vociferous member of that committee. I might surprise you to know. And at one point, she asked if we could have a private meeting together. And sounds fine to me, you know. And we met for an hour, and we talked. Well, actually, Dolores talked for an hour, and I listened carefully. And over the course of that hour of listening, I learned that I was sitting in front of a person of great passion and great substance that has already been noted, and that she was a very special person, and she was a kind of a person that I might like to work with. And I had later meetings with other colleagues within the College of Fine Arts, Victor Ritson from the School of Art, Susan Shaughnessy and Kay Koger from the School of Drama. And through the course of those series of meetings, and with many other people I already knew here in the School of Music, I was convinced that this was a place where I'd like to work. If I was invited to work here, it would be a privilege to do so, and they would be a lot of fun, and it turned out to be exactly that. I'm happy to report that I passed muster. She reported back to the search committee that she thought I would be a fine candidate to come here. I later learned through several different people that the reason I passed muster was she liked my dimples. That was all she had to say about it. Well, you know, when you're a fine arts administrator, even trivial victories are still victories, and I've always treasured that. I'm no longer a dean. I'm no longer a professor. I'm still a composer, and my wife tells me I still have dimples. So, she was totally devoted to her students. That's been noted many times. You know, Dolores Leffingwell didn't teach voice. She taught people. She taught people. And when she taught a person, she taught the whole person. And she was deeply engaged in their lives. She cared about their physical health. She cared about their emotional well-being. She cared about their intellectual growth processes. She cared deeply about their writing ability, which always warmed my heart as a member of the graduate faculty. And she spent a lot of time, I'm told by her former students, one of whom is my wife, that she spent a lot of time with those people, cooking meals for them, talking to them about healthy lifestyles, cooking delicious meals, creating salons in her home, making sure they ate properly, making sure that they slept properly, and all of the things that go into the physical being of being an artist. She was into the health and well-being of students and the relationship between healthy living, medicine, and musical performance well before that became a national conversation. It maybe 5 or 6 years later did become a national conversation and became a norm that is now part of the accreditation process for the National Associations of Schools of Music. She was well ahead of her time in doing that. Now, that is a standard of accreditation that must be met and verified by means of various accreditation inside baseball things that I won't share with you. She was there in the front of it. She understood that well before the rest of us understood it. When I was a student, during the time when she would have been a student, if you had a vocal injury, if you had a performance injury of any sort, your teacher would sit you down gently with the director of the school and say, well, that's a real shame. I guess you're going to have to find something else to do, aren't you? She didn't accept that. She found ways around it. The current initiatives in this school, the Breathe Out work of Dr. Melissa Bachman, the health and well-being initiatives that are being put forth by Jonathan Nickel, the food pantry that's out here in the lobby for food insecurity and healthy food for students that may not be able to afford it, or for students that can afford it but think a bag of Cheetos is somehow one of the food groups. I hope that makes her smile, because she started all of that here, and she was vigilant about it, and that's one of the things that I really admired the most about her, was not only the passion that she had for her students, but the way that she put that passion into daily practice. Later on in her career, when her performing days were over, she was one of the first, again, to establish a relationship between health, medicine, and music, and wellness of the vocal instrument, as well as the total human being behind that vocal instrument. During my time as dean, forged some very significant alliances in vocal health, as has already been noted, with the OU School of Medicine. She was a well-respected researcher up there. And in fact, toward the end of her career, became an expert witness in civil trials and for redress of injuries that happen to people through vocal performance or through things that inhibited their vocal performance. I would encourage you sometime to Google that. There's a very interesting case in the Arkansas court system in which he served as an expert witness for a young woman whose voice was robbed from her as a result of a plane crash. I have no idea how the case turned out, but her testimony is very heartfelt and very compelling and rooted in sound, logical data. And I can't help but think that that helped that poor person get redress from the airline company for their malfeasance. But you know, her teaching went beyond caring. If you're a teacher, it's one thing to care, and we all hope that we have caring teachers. But at some point, you have to know what you're talking about. I'm reminded of the English cleric, Eldon Trueblood, when he was talking about music of the church. He said, you know, holy shoddy is still shoddy. And there was nothing shoddy about Dolores Leffingwell. She was a very, very well-prepared musician. And as you can tell from reading her biography, she had a long and distinguished career before she worked into academia. I found her, every time I worked with her, to be a very well-informed musician, especially in music literature and more especially in opera. I know that she was valued by the opera team around here for her opinions and for her thoughts and inputs on casting and the like. I remember in an offhanded discussion one time with one of her colleagues that that colleague said, you know, she's one of the people around here that really does know how the music goes. And I do believe that she did. I remember a few years after I became the dean here, that I went to a performance over across the street in the museum where she did a performance at Perrault Lunaire. Perrault Lunaire, for those that don't know, involves a particular and peculiar type of singing known as Sprechstimme. It's a speaking, singing style. Now, I'm not a vocalist and I have a terrible voice, but I would imagine that that would be a very difficult technique to learn and to pull off. As a composer and as a conductor of new music ensembles, having worked that piece many times, I do know that it's a very difficult piece to get singers to communicate with any level of passion and with any level of conviction. And I've heard lots of performances of that piece over the course of my plus 60 years composing music. That night was one of the best performances of Perrault Lunaire I ever heard, ever. And it still lives in my head. I can still hear it many years later. Let me close by saying Dolores was certainly not a saint. She was cantankerous. She was argumentative. If you were on the other side of the desk as a dean, you didn't want to be there. She was relentless, but everything that she did came from her heart and it came from a good place. Dolores Leffingwell was a deeply good person. And she was what I call a 24/7 teacher. She never went off the clock. I know. I would get calls interrupting my dinner. I would get calls at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. She would stop me as I was walking to lunch and in the political sense, as they say, buttonhole me about something. I know from talking with my wife and with other of her students that she worked tirelessly for her students. She would be in my office all the time, asking for funds or for support or for some letter or something that would allow her students to advance in the profession and to be able to do so in a way that was financially risk-free. I also know that she spent a lot of time working with medical doctors within the Oklahoma City community, finding those, particularly ENT specialists, that would work with singers that had vocal problems, getting them to treat those students pro bono. You might ask how in the world in this day of managed medicine and co-pays and all of that, how she managed to get those medical doctors to treat those students pro bono. And I would simply respond by saying, well, then you don't know Dolores Leffingwell. If you were on the phone with her, she would win. And I have great admiration for that. It's worth, she didn't have an off switch. I guess that would be the best thing I could say about it. She didn't have an off switch. She was always on the job, and she was always deeply devoted to her students. It's worth noting that this service today was put together by her former students. I think that says volumes about Dolores Leffingwell. More than what's on this sheet of paper here, more than what's already been said. This whole thing, from start to finish, was put together and executed and planned by her students. They didn't have to do that. They chose to do that, to honor her and to honor her life. And I want to thank them for putting this together. For my friend and colleague, Dolores Leffingwell, I want to thank them for asking me to participate and be able to share a few things with you. And I want to thank you for being in attendance today to support and remember this truly remarkable person.
So now I would like to open it up to the floor for those who would like to share memories of Dolores Leffingwell. Anna?
My name is Reverend Anna Holloway, and I wasn't a reverend when I met Dolores. Her first semester here, I auditioned for her. I started singing in her studio in January of 1990. And I was at that point trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, because I was trying to finish a degree and get on to other things. And I wound up studying with her for as long as the School of Music would put up with the fact that a non-musician was actually studying with a faculty member, which was about 6 years. And then I moved off to graduate student education. And Dolores and I, because I was what is called a non-traditional student, which is code for old, I was already over 30 when I met her. So we got to be what we would call friends, although I love what Dean Lamb said about the fact that she was cantankerous. We were both strong-willed women. We're both stubborn. We're both very smart. We both have strong opinions. We got along very well when we were not talking to each other, which was sometimes how you got along with Dolores. But one of my particular specialties is language. Multiple languages, but also writing in English. And as you've heard from her poetry, she was passionate about it. One of the things that she hired me to do was to help her write letters of recommendation. Dolores, being an intelligent woman of her period and understanding how women are treated by the universe, never learned to type. Carefully, never learned to type. So she needed help to do things on the computer that needed to be done quickly and required, keyboard skills. She would spend 2 to 4 hours on a letter of recommendation.
At least.
Oh yeah. And she wrote with the same care and clarity as her poetry. Some of them were poetry. I was trained in business as well, And there are people in the world who read those letters of recommendation and I'm sure looked at them and thought, what is this? Because a letter of recommendation that reads like, with that kind of richness of language and that kind of lush and careful phrasing, and we would go back and decide where the comma went, and then we would go back and reread it and decide if that adjective was really strong enough. And no, I want it to be stronger, she would say. I want it to be, this person really needs this. I want this to be the best it can be. And we'd go back and do it again. And I know that those letters were amazing letters, and that the people who read them were astonished by the letters. I don't know if they were astonished by the people they were about, but the letters alone were amazing. The other thing that was a story about Dolores that we haven't touched on is how deeply terrified she was in some cases. She was facing her 10-year review and was deeply terrified. She had to put together this huge packet of material, and she couldn't type. And so she was panicking. By this time, she and I were very good friends. And so she confided that in me, and I was trying to figure out how I could help her. And then I got a call from the assistant dean, who was at that time one of the piano faculty, who hired me at the School of Music. The dean's office hired me to work for Dolores to do her tenure packet. And I spent several months with her putting this together for a set fee, which I was very glad to have. And we worked on it, and she was constantly terrified it wasn't good enough. I finally had to sit her down and say, Dolores, they wouldn't pay me to do this if they didn't want to keep you. Oh, she said. And her eyes got big in that lovely, beautiful, childlike way she had when she saw something wonderful and marvelous. And that's when it dawned on her that she was wanted here. So thank you to the School of Music.
I will say, while this young lady is coming up, one of the things Dolores did for me when I was in the end of my doctorate, which Dean Lamb got me through as my advisor, was that she connected me, with Anna. And Anna and I put together a 1,300-page dissertation that was a qualitative interview, and I was confiding to Dr. Leffingwell, what am I going to do? And she said, oh, no, you need Anna Holloway. And boy, was that ever a blessing.
Hello, my name is Maddie Breedlove. I was, I believe, one of Dr. Leffingwell's last students before the 2020 pandemic, and I had her for most of my bachelor's and most of my master's, and I have this story, just the most important story to me. It kind of sums up my relationship with her, and it was the week leading up to my senior recital, and I had an important U.S. history exam because I was one of those seniors that waited till the last year to do all of my general education classes. And I was running from my exam to my lesson, the last lesson I would have before my recital. And I was 3 minutes late. And I knew I was gonna get in big trouble. I was running, and I was heading up the stairs into the hallway, and a few of my friends were there, and they said, oh my gosh, Dr. Leffingwell just came out, and she was very nervous for you. She's looking for you, and she's very frantic. And so I looked down at my phone, and I have 5 missed calls from her and 2 voicemails. And I was only 3 minutes late. And so I followed through with my lesson, and most of it was her expressing the importance of how being on time is very, very important. And I agree with her completely. And I was, since hearing of Dr. Leffingwell's passing, or as a lot of us lovingly called her, Leffy, I wanted to look back and see if I still had those voicemails, and I surely did. And I remember the very last voicemail that I had from her was during the pandemic, and she was a concern for my mental health because she knew that I wanted to be successful in this career. And I graduated with my master's in 2020, and so she knew that jumping into this career was going to be hard for me. And the last voicemail she sent me was, "I think of you very much." And that's just her. So thank you for letting me be here today and tell that story.
Is there anyone else who would like to share? Dr. Peterson.
So I'm Sana Peterson, and I joined the faculty here in 2001. And so when I came, Dolores had stopped performing, so I never heard her perform. And she was about 70, and that was, 20-some years ago. And I think one of the most striking things about her was how she was kind of performing all the time. And it was just imprinting her personality on absolutely everything she did. And I think just hearing a little bit of her poetry gives you a sense of that. I mean, everything was so distinctive about herself. And I think when she was 88, she would have been 89 this year, and she was totally the same all the way up to the end. And the last time I saw her was in February, and she had rescued a couple dogs, and these dogs in her house, and they were just making it completely chaotic, just the way she likes it. Okay, and she had rescued them off of Lindsay, and it was raining. It was at night. Took an hour to coax them into her car, and she had to bring them to the vet. They had extensive medical work that needed to be done. Okay, and then she did manage to give them away. But that was one of her things. It's one of the things she did, and she did that throughout her whole life. I wanted to just say other things that were enthusiasms for her. Of course, the dogs, the rescuing the dogs, the poetry, but also she really loved films. She was a great film buff, and was always staying up all night to watch some rare movies. And thrift stores. She loved to find little treasures and give them to her friends. That was one of her favorite things. And then also trees. She really loved trees. And her really amazing landscaping of her home is part of that. She was extravagant, and she thrived in chaos, and I think that was just the most wonderful thing. She was an amazing person, and we'll remember her because she was unforgettable. Thanks.
telling me I haven't been practicing enough, or with her with a really stern look on her face. But I just love this painting so much. For those of you that maybe don't know me, my name is Kelly Estes. I started studying at OU. It would have been the fall of 2003. And I was a pre-med major. And it took, I think, about 3 semesters of making several C's in my classes that I thought, well, this maybe just is a dream for a different lifetime. And so I had been in choir and singing, since I was in the 4th grade, and started taking private lessons in middle school, and then, years of pumping myself up and going to therapy, I can now tell you I am a good singer. I can say that now, the sky's not gonna fall, I am a good singer. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll go back to music and give that a try. And so I dusted off my soprano aria Schirmer book, we all know the one. And I picked out a couple of things. I found out when the audition was happening. I didn't know where I was going, so I showed up to Carpenter Hall on the 3rd floor, a little bit earlier than I needed to be there, just to make sure I was in the right place. And people would go in this office right at the top of the stairs and go in, and then they'd come out, and the next person go in and come out. Turns out I'm the last one left there, and so I must be the last one, and the door opens, and the singer that had gone in came out, and then this man walks out, and then this cute little old lady comes out. Okay, well, you're the last one. And the pianist who had gone out apparently thought that the last singer had already gone, and he needed a moment. It was apparently too much that he was going to have to play for one more person, and so he started throwing a fit, and little timid old me was just like, I don't want to inconvenience anyone, maybe I'll just come back later, I don't know. And she, oh, come on in here, and she goes and talks him off a ledge, and he comes back in, plays fine. It went well. I thought, okay, it's fine. I go on about the rest of my day, and I get a phone call that night, and it's from, this woman who was Dr. Leffingwell that I had sung for. She was so excited. I was going to come, and I was going to have lessons with her, and I was going to, just have lessons, and then I was going to also enroll in the choir, and it was going to be so good, and we were going to work together and work really hard, and then then at the end of the semester, I was going to come back and I was going to sing for the faculty again. And okay, this is great. And just come to my office on Monday morning. Okay, it's great. Okay, I'm so excited. Click. Why am I going to have to sing for the faculty again? Why can I only enroll in lessons and in choir? I didn't get in, did I? Sure enough, I had not been accepted by the faculty. But whatever she saw in me, she was super excited about, and she was, as we all know, ready to put the work into it. And if she were here today, she would still be laughing at that story. Anytime I brought up how I had not been accepted, and that, we worked really hard together, worked really well together, got along really well together, and, came out where I did, and, as I said, I'm a good singer, I can say that now, but I owe a lot to her. I miss my teacher, and I probably miss my friend more, but I think we're definitely all better people for having known her, so thank you all for coming here and for honoring her and sharing her with the rest of us.
called Soprano on a Good Day.
Soprano on a good day. To be read aloud with raised eyebrows as if speaking of a wild child. Beauty is about beauty wearing implications of her ascendancy. She ought never be beholden, no, but bruise about, banner-bound, all a hoot in ribald glory, in a sweat of summer heat, in serious, hallucinatory rapture, unstoppable. See how she scans the skies, upbraids the heavens, clears an acoustically challenged cloud. There she thrusts an arch of impudent scales, replete in shimmering, sinuous sounds. Oh, cry the startled stars, quivering, cross-eyed, envious quasars, astonished. Will the formant-flavored fabric of her voice unhinge their very universe? Scatter quickly, all planets, all lingering celestial bodies. We want no impediments to her imperial resonance, to the haunting peril of her vocalic feats. For it is sound, sound, the shift and swerve of timbrous sound that soars and jubilates. Its pulse, its trill, the indisputable thing, its ring and reign, her festive destiny. La, 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 la.
Dr. Anna is going to play a piece by Schubert, which was truly one of Dolores's favorite composers. After she's finished, please meet us outside for a little bite to eat and a chance to share more individually. Thank you for coming. Babcock and myself, thank you for coming.